Blog Talk Radio.
So you want your charity to succeed. It's no secret that combining online and offline techniques is the key to modern-day fundraising success, and practical advice is what you need. The Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart is the perfect place to learn from experts around the world who, along with our host, provide advice you can use. Ted Hart is without a doubt one of the foremost nonprofit thought leaders. Also a successful author, his books cover a broad range of topics from major gift fundraising to use of social media and how to succeed online. Ted lectures around the world, but now he's here for you. From the latest in charity news, technology, fundraising, and social networking, Ted and his guests help you maneuver through this economic downturn in the charitable sector to greater levels of efficiency and fundraising success. Remember, this is a live call-in show. Become part of the show by adding your voice. Call now at 347-324-3080. After the show, you can find all our podcasts at tedhart.com. Just click on radio links. Don't forget to dial 347-324-3080. Now, welcome the host of the Nonprofit Coach, Ted Hart.
And welcome here to the Nonprofit Coach radio show. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, October 2nd, and this is our second show this week. I hope that you had an opportunity to join us yesterday when the show was live from BBCon, the Black Bog Conference, which is at National Harbor. Still going on and quite successful, and we do have an update from BBCon here on Page One News. For those of you who are familiar with the show, those of you who are new, as the announcer just mentioned, this is a live call-in show, so you can call us at 347-324-3080 and ask questions of our Page 2 experts when we get to Page 2 on the show. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome here to the Nonprofit Coach Linda Lysakowski, ACFRE, an expert and an icon in the nonprofit sector. She will be our Page 2 guest today, so get your pencils out and make sure that you've got that number. For those of you who are shy, you can also join us over in the chat room. I see a number of people in the chat room right now. You can ask questions there. You can also email me your questions at tedhart@tedhart.com. Don't forget, when you dial in, to press the number 1. That will tell me that you do want to ask a question, and I will find you right here on the switchboard. With that, here, as always, on the Nonprofit Coach, we start with Page 1 News. Over here on Page 1 News, you can always join us over at tedhart.com. Click on radio links, and you will find all the links that we've provided for you today, not only for today's show, but all of the archives of prior shows, best links in the industry. You will find over in the radio links today a link to our top 10 shows of all time. And I'm quite excited to welcome here live on the Nonprofit Coach one of our top 10 guest experts of all time on the Nonprofit Coach radio show, and that's Pat Pasquale. Pat, welcome back here to the Nonprofit Coach radio show.
Thank you, Ted, for asking me again.
Well, it's great to have you here on the show, and of course, you are with the Foundation Center, and over at the Foundation Center, you help folks with a number of different topics. But here on the Nonprofit Coach radio show, you were here as our top 10 expert, and what makes you so popular? Why do people keep coming back to not only listen to you when you're live on the show, but your podcast is extremely popular?
Well, I think it's because I work for the Foundation Center, and we are the leading source of information on philanthropy, and we provide quality information in a number of formats. I think we've been very progressive in terms of, we've gone from the Foundation Directory, which some people still ask for, the book, from that to CD-ROMs. Now we're on the Internet. We do podcasts, we do tweets, we do all kinds of multimedia approaches. So
you do the Nonprofit Coach radio show?
Yes, we do. We do webinars. We try to make the information very accessible to people where they are, because people are so busy and they can't get out to physical locations anymore, but they can turn on their computers and pick up their personal devices and get good solid information.
Now you were here on the show for your top 10 rated show. You were here on June 22nd, 2010. That's your top 10 show, number 8 of all time. You've been back on the show since then, and your more recent show is just moving right up the charts. So I have no doubt that you're probably going to be staying in the top 10. Since we've only got a few moments with you here on page 1, what's one of the best pieces of advice that you have given nonprofits for success in fundraising?
Well, today I think figuring out what to do with this new topic called big data and, getting ahead of it. There are articles everywhere. Take some classes, read, figure out how you're going to use data. Don't be afraid of it because it's a new term, but nonprofits have been using data for a long time. It's just there's so much more of it out there through the Internet and all sorts of mapping tools and visualizations, et cetera. But use it to your advantage.
What is big data? Are you with us?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is big data?
Big data basically is a term that's been bouncing around for the last year or so, year and a half. It's usually, what it basically is, I found a really good definition, that it's really marketing intelligence. It's any kind of information that helps you understand your constituency, meet unmet needs, or work well with others. That's what my colleague Larry McGill, and Vice President for Research, defines it as. And I think when you look at it that way, it's less scary. We've always used census materials. We've used the Annie Casey Kids Count book in order to figure out, the needs of our community. It's just there's more of it out there, and layering it is more of a possibility because of these new
So it's really
online
using
tools.
multiple data sets to give yourself a bigger picture of the landscape than just name and address.
Right.
Okay. Well, terrific. Well, as always, Pat Pasquale, anytime you come here on the Nonprofit Coach, you bring us really, really good information. We look forward to having you back as a page 2 expert. That is Pat Pasquale at the Foundation Center in Washington, D.C., who is here helping us celebrate the fact that she is one of the smartest people in fundraising, and she is our number 8 in the top 10 of all-time favorite shows here on the Nonprofit Coach. Next up here on the Nonprofit Coach radio show, you'll find over in the radio links at tedhart.com a link over to the Direct Marketing Fundraisers Association. I'm very pleased to welcome here to the Nonprofit Coach Wendy Weber. Wendy Weber comes to us from Crandall Associates. Crandall Associates, you are the president of Crandall Associates, an executive search firm specializing in direct and digital marketing. Much of the work that they do is in the nonprofit sector, placing direct marketing fundraising professionals at both nonprofits and the agencies that they serve. Crandall Associates is based in New York, but today we've got Wendy Weber here with us on a very specific topic that I know is going to be of interest to our listeners today, and that is that you've been asked to help out the Direct Marketing Fundraisers Association give away some money. Is that right, Wendy?
That's correct.
So tell us all about it, Wendy, and by the way, welcome here to the Nonprofit Coach.
Thanks, Ted.
So what are you giving away, and why would my listeners be interested?
Giving away money, and so your listeners should be interested because it is amazingly easy to receive some of the funds that are available through the DMFA.
I'm all ears. So tell us what's available, and we have provided a link over in the radio links today, so all of our listeners can go directly to tedhart.com, click on radio, and they can follow along with the DMFA Scholarship Fund. Tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, the DMFA is a fabulous professional organization that is an organization that was established to share direct marketing knowledge and ideas among its members. And they realize that all too often fundraisers face tight budgets that prevent them from pursuing continual professional development. And this fund was created to provide resources to help subsidize educational expenses. The funds could be used for a webinar, a full-day seminar, an annual conference, really any continuing professional development in the nonprofit fundraising realm.
Okay, so anything related to fundraising, not necessarily just direct marketing.
That's correct. Well, it's within the direct marketing scope. So I think that they would probably expect that there's a direct marketing component to receiving the funds.
Okay.
The way to receive the funds is that you must complete a little essay, a 250-word essay on why you're applying. That essay must be received 60 days prior to the event. And the scholarships can be applied only to the cost of the class or conference. It's not for example, airfare. And then the scholarship can be in any amount between $50 and $1,000. And the only additional requirement is that you need to provide a written feedback to the DMFA about what you learned at the class or conference.
Well, that's terrific. Well, now, Wendy, tell me, how did Crandall Associates get involved with such a terrific project?
Well, I personally have become involved with the Direct Marketing Fundraisers Association because I find that their members are certainly important people for us to have in our network. And whenever I hear about something that I think is worthy, I try to spread the word to my network, and that's how we began this collaboration.
Well, that's terrific. Well, I try to do the same thing, and that's why we have good folks like you here on the Nonprofit Coach radio show. Now, how would people, they got the link at tedhart.com today that they can go to, but they can also, can they call Risa Sudnow as well?
Absolutely, yes, she is their representative.
Give that number out. Do you want to give that number out? I've got it here if you need it.
I do need it, yes.
Okay, no problem. You can go to tedhart.com, click on radio links. You'll find the entire link that Wendy has been so kind to share with us, or you can call 646-675-7314 and ask for information on the DMFA Scholarship Fund. Wendy Weber, President of Crandall Associates, headquartered in New York, thank you for joining us here on the Nonprofit Coach today.
It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely. Come back anytime. Next up here on the Nonprofit Coach radio show, we've got a very, very full show for you today, and I promised a little bit of an update coming to you from BBCon. We've got Melanie Mathos here, who is live over at the conference. Melanie, thank you for joining us here again on the Nonprofit Coach.
Sure, glad to be back.
Now, Melanie, I'm thrilled that you're joining us. Now, how are things going over at BBCon?
It's still going strong. We're just finishing up our last sessions here and headed into the general session to hopefully inspire folks to transform their organizations when they get back and use some of the things they learned from all the great speakers that we've had here.
Well, and you, of course, had three of your top folks here on the Nonprofit Coach Special Edition live from BBCon yesterday, so this is our second show. But you folks made some news last night in honoring some very fine organizations, and I'm glad that you chose to come here on the Nonprofit Coach to let the broader world know what happened yesterday.
Sure. Well, as you know, and we spoke about yesterday, the Convio Summit combined with BBCon this year. And one of the things that the Convio community had always valued was the Innovator Awards. So we brought that into the conference this year as the BBCon Impact Awards, where we recognize 6 nonprofits for their innovative use of technology.
Can you give us some of the details of who won and why were they recognized?
Sure, definitely. So we had 6 winners, as I mentioned, and the first was our Best Multi-Channel Campaign, and that went to Gleaners Community Food Bank of Southeastern Michigan. Their use of a multi-channel approach to combat the rising demand for emergency food resources won them that award. And we have case studies all available at blackcloudnews.com with more specifics that you might be able to learn from to adopt at your organization. The next one was Best CRM Visionary, and this went to YWCA of Columbus. And this award went to the organization for a couple of reasons. One of the things is they really reevaluated how they were using their CRM and then also their data integrity and really taking a deep dive into the data, which really greatly improved their returns. And then also they launched a mobile website. And Best Online Campaign went to Ocean Conservancy. they had a really neat effort. They did a 30-day trash-free challenge, and for the first time, they took a lot of components online. So it's really to raise awareness for all the things you can do offline, but they had the highest level of engagement ever just by adding that online layer to the campaign. And case study there as well. And then the best peer-to-peer went to University of Guelph, a Canadian institution. They used peer-to-peer fundraising to really pull together the different departments in their university, all in support of raising money, communications, and then they were able to build a new Olympic track as a result of that. They also just raised a huge amount of money while decreasing costs by going to that peer-to-peer model. And best use of new media.
Two additional awards as well. What happened over in the best use of new media?
This one was really neat. It was American Diabetes Association, and a lot of these national organizations struggle with how they can maintain their brand, yet still support the grassroots fundraising events and the chapter fundraising events. So what ADA did is they developed a training series, and they really got down into the communities and shared resources for how to have a comprehensive event strategy on Facebook. So they created a best practices guide and also implemented training across the organization. And
your final award, is that sort of the big finale for the overall use of Blackbaud?
Yes, so this one's a very neat organization. They wanted to boost revenue for their sponsorship program. So what they did is they implemented an online sponsorship program to really make it easier for people to lend their support and get involved, and they had experienced a huge growth in overall revenue, online revenue, and sustainer gifts. So that was a really neat story there as well. So we were really proud to recognize them, and it was a lot of fun celebrating their success at BBCon.
And how were they recognized?
We recognized them as part of the keynote yesterday, and then our corporate philanthropy team has made a donation to each organization.
That's terrific. So BBCon is now wrapping up for the year. This was the largest BBCon audience ever?
Yes, we had 2,600 attendees, and that includes a lot of great partners, both from the Convio and Blackbaud side coming together now, and then our combined customer base as well. So it was a really wonderful event, and we're looking forward to next year already.
Well, great, and we look forward to our continued association with Blackbaud and wish you all the best as you wrap up another successful, I think, your 13th BBCon conference. So we all look forward to number 14.
Great. Well, thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Melanie, and congratulations to all of the winners announced here on the Nonprofit Coach in the Blackbaud Innovator Impact Awards. So that was Melanie Matthews from Blackbaud making that announcement. It is now time for us to move right on over to our top expert for the day, Linda Lysakowski, over on page 2. Now, first of all, one of the things you need to know about Linda Lysakowski, not only is she one of the top experts in the nonprofit sector, but she is also an ACFRE. She's one of fewer than 100 professionals worldwide to hold the Advanced Certified Fundraising Executive designation. I hold that designation as well, and so I always feel that I have at least a little bit in common with Linda Lysakowski. In her 19 years as a philanthropic consultant, she has managed capital campaigns, helped dozens of nonprofit organizations achieve development goals, and has trained more than 22,000 professionals in Mexico, Canada, Egypt, and most of the 50 United States in all aspects of development. She's a graduate of the AFP's Faculty Training Academy and has received 2 AFP research grants, and those are not easy to come by, so you can clearly see that Linda knows what she's talking about. She's also a prolific writer. She's currently working on several more books. She's received the Outstanding Fundraising Executive Award from both Eastern PA and Las Vegas chapters, 2 separate chapters. It's impressive enough to win that just once. And in 2006 was recognized internationally with the Barbara Marion Award for Outstanding Service to AFP. If you're not already impressed, you should be, and she's right here live on the Nonprofit Coach, Linda Lysakowski. Welcome.
Thanks, Ted. It's great to be back again. It seems like it's been forever since we've talked, and as Ted mentioned the ACFRE process, I wanted to kind of announce that pretty soon that we're going to be installing the 100th ACFRE, so we'll have to change our blurbs, I guess, Ted, if we are saying that we're one of less than 100 because we're ready to go over the 100 mark. So I'm kind of excited about that because it's always good to see another ACFRE join the ranks, and it's great to be back here on your show, Ted.
Absolutely, and the fact that we're both ACFREs gives us an opportunity to just promote that process and encourage the listeners today who may be thinking about becoming ACFRE that it is an important thing that you consider because it shows your interest, your support of our growing industry, and to set yourself apart as an expert so that you can be a beacon of light to those who are entering the field and those who are looking to grow within the field. So, Linda, thank you for being one of those beacons of light. Now, there's so much that I want to talk to you about today, but I do want to ask you to sort of introduce my listeners today to a very interesting book, and that's Fundraising for the Genius.
Yes, that's actually my latest book. I have actually, I believe, 3 more in editing process that will be released probably either later this year or early next year. But I'm really excited about Fundraising for the Genius. It's my publisher, Stephen Nill, calls it my opus, and I think it's sort of a soup to nuts, everything you need to know about fundraising. In fact, at the publisher's suggestion, we put a tagline in there that this is the only book you'll ever need, but of course it's not the only book you'll ever want to buy about fundraising. But I'm excited about it for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it is such a comprehensive book. It really covers the soup to nuts of fundraising, starting with defining what's the difference between philanthropy, development, and fundraising, and then going all through some of the things that you were just talking about, direct marketing, social media, in-person fundraising, corporate fundraising, plan giving, with kind of a nice overview of just about everything you need to know about fundraising, including how you plan for fundraising and how you evaluate and assess your fundraising, because I'm a firm believer that too many of us just sort of plod along with doing the same thing over and over again and never take the time to assess what we're doing in fundraising. So I'm excited about the book for that reason. The second reason I'm excited about the book is that it's a brand new release and for a whole new series of books that will be coming out called For the Genius. And unlike my other books, this one obviously is directed to the nonprofit market because it's Fundraising for the Genius. But the Genius series is a general audience book, so we're going to be releasing books in all kind of topics from wine for the genius and sewing for the genius and a whole variety of topics. It's probably pretty easy to figure out who our competition is for these books, but we like to think that our readers are really intelligent, and I just had someone come up to me and say, I feel really good about buying this book and putting it on my shelf because it says it's for the genius. So I'm kind of excited about the book, but also about the series that we're going to be releasing very shortly.
Well, I did find that very interesting because it does sort of make you feel good when you see that book. But do geniuses need books, or are they just geniuses already? How do you make folks smarter by reading the
tagline that we're kind of using in this book is you don't have to be a genius to read this book, but that we hope you'll be a lot more knowledgeable about the topic after you're finished reading the book. So we sort of use it as a tongue-in-cheek kind of a little bit of a wordplay against some of the other competing organized books that are out there talking about, various different topics. But we like to think that our readers are intelligent, but maybe they're novices at what they're doing. Maybe they've been involved in the nonprofit world for a long time, but they've not had to do fundraising, and now maybe they're being put into a fundraising situation where their organization has lost a big source of funding. For example, I've been working over the past year or so with a group of organizations that had a very large federal grant that they expected to run for about 3 years, and so they were all kind of merrily rolling along, providing this wonderful service of mentoring children of prisoners. And these were associations all over the country, and suddenly that grant was sort of pulled out from under them very unexpectedly, and then they all of a sudden had to face some hard facts about fundraising, that they needed to do more than rely on federal grants. And I think this is going to be probably more and more common as government money shrinks both on the state level, the county level, the federal level. So a lot of organizations maybe never had to do fundraising before. Maybe they've run a very successful nonprofit for years and years, but they were never required to really get involved in fundraising. So that's why we call our book to Genius books, because they are for people who, are capable and knowledgeable but need to either brush up on a topic or learn about a new topic, or just want to learn more about something that maybe they're already doing.
Yeah, and so you're going to be covering a lot of different topics, but as you said, this one sort of starts the trend, Fundraising for Genius. In this book, you talk about developing sustainable fundraising programs. Is the message that you just gave to us one about contingencies?
Right. I think it's really important that organizations plan ahead. I'm a huge fan of planning. The old saying of failing to plan is planning to fail. I really believe in that, because so many organizations get sort of trapped into, particularly I find two areas, as I mentioned, federal grants. Another area that I find especially smaller organizations getting trapped in is special events. I just actually spoke yesterday at a gathering of nonprofits who were there because they were all taking part in a very, very large and very successful special event. But I find sometimes organizations get stuck in that special event mode where a board member or a volunteer or maybe even a staff person comes in and says, oh, I just heard about this really great event. We should do this, and we should run a golf tournament because the hospital ran one and they raised $200,000. Or let's have a gala dinner dance because everybody in town is having a gala dinner dance and they're all making a lot of money. And so they just go from one event to the other, and they never really take time to analyze those events and say, are we really making money at this? I just, in fact, heard from a person who said her organization for 2 years in a row lost $50,000 on an event, and they're still planning to hold it the next year. And you start to wonder, why do people not take the time to think and to plan? So in this book, I really talk about all the different aspects of fundraising that you can try, and maybe not all of them are for every organization. But no organization should be dependent on one or two different types of fundraising. You will never succeed if you do only direct mail or only special events or only grants. So I'm really trying to encourage people to get involved in more and more activities. I was really kind of delighted to hear your earlier guest talking about scholarships available for education, because I think this is what is so needed in the nonprofit community, that we can get out and educate people about all aspects of fundraising, not just focusing on one particular area. So I really stress that in the book.
Well, and wasn't that a really nice, innovative scholarship fund for the DMFA to come up with? And it seems that they're not just putting it out there, but they're being very proactive in wanting people to know about it. So that really is sort of a big advance forward. We wouldn't have seen that just a few years ago.
No, I think that's huge. I think there's always been a lot of educational opportunities out there, probably never as many as there have been now. And I think, was it Wendy who talked about that? I think she was really right on that a lot of people don't have time to get to national conferences. They don't have the travel budget to do it, but there are webinars out there. There are local and regional conferences. And I think this is wonderful that this organization is stepping up and giving scholarships, because so many people would like to do more education and more training, but they just don't have it in their budget to do it. So I certainly encourage all the listeners out there to take advantage of that and get your application in right away.
Right, exactly. Now back to your book here, which people can find on your book, your website, Linda Lysakowski, and we do have a link to that at tedhart.com. Click on a radio link so that people can do that. Now, in this book, you talk about enabling, bringing people together, your board, your non-development staff, your development staff, your volunteers. This is what's typically referred to as the team, but how often does that really work?
I think it works well if organizations really take the time to do it. Unfortunately, some organizations, both from the staff perspective and even from the board perspective, sometimes feel that, well, if they hire a development person, then, oh, boy, our job is over. We don't have to worry about that fundraising stuff anymore. Let's dump it all on her lap or his lap and let the development staff person worry about the fundraising, and we don't have to do it anymore. And that never really works because it has to be a team effort. If you think about, and another book that I recently published this year was Raise More Money from Your Business Community, and I think it's particularly true in the business community, but it's true with other donor situations as well, that if you want to raise money from a business and you're going to go out and talk to the CEO of the business, they don't want to usually talk to the development director. They want to talk to the CEO of the nonprofit. So the role of the executive director or the president or whatever you call your CEO in fundraising is really critical. They are the face of the organization in most cases, and that's who people think about when they think about your organization. And I think if you talk to any university or college president, they will tell you that they probably spend 75% of their time doing fundraising because people want to speak to the person in charge. And I think it's especially true in the business community, and it's also true with foundations and with individuals. When you're talking to major donors, they want to speak to the CEO of your organization. So that person's role is critical, and the board's role is really critical because most foundations these days will ask you the question right up front on the application, has your board financially supported your organization? What percentage of your board is supporting your organization? And in some cases, they even want to know what dollar amount that your board has contributed to the organization. So if the board members are not engaged in fundraising and the executive director is not engaged in fundraising, you're really setting up the development director for failure, and you're investing a lot of money in a person who is not going to succeed because they're working in isolation and they're not working as a team. I also really believe strongly that non-development staff have a big role to play in fundraising too. And just to give you kind of an example, I worked a long time ago in a museum, and when I started my job at this museum, I was head of the foundation there, and I was the first fundraising person they ever engaged. So they had nothing in place. Well, they did have a predecessor of Razor's Edge in place. They had a good software system, but no one knew how to use it. They had no really names in the system to speak of, and so they were really starting from scratch. So I interviewed the director of the museum, the CEO, got a lot of great input from him, and I interviewed the curator of fine arts because I wanted to learn about our collection so I would be able to speak to donors about our collection, why it was important to the community. And then I spoke to the program director who had our educational programs for school children, and I got some great information from her about what we were doing with the schools, and that helped me raise money. But one person I talked to helped me, I think maybe even more than any of those, and that was the security guard at the museum. And it sounds like an unlikely person to be helping with fundraising, but he was the person who stood inside the front door and watched the school kids come in and saw the looks on their faces when they heard about the different things in the museum. He knew all the docents of the museum, and he knew which ones were wealthy, which ones had connections in the community, and how we could work with those people to develop more fundraising for the museum. So everybody in that museum, I really tapped into their expertise and their knowledge and their institutional memory, and their fundraising was extremely successful because it was really thought about as a team effort. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to hire a fundraising person and let them on their own and they're going to raise all the money. So it's only successful if it really happens as a team effort.
Well, I agree, and we're going to take just a real quick break. When we come back, I wanted to ask you if you would delve into this concept of the role of the CEO, because I think that oftentimes that for the average fundraiser that's listening today, that can be one of the biggest challenges that you might have. And we will be right back. I want to make sure that everybody has their calendars out and that you are able to have written down the upcoming shows here on the Nonprofit Coach. Next week, we will have Sean Triner, who is a global fundraising guru, here on the Nonprofit Coach, followed by David Sims from the Leukemia Foundation, and the week after that, David LaGreca here on Governance Matters, Board of Directors, Trustees. We're going to round out the month of October with Amy Eisenstein, who is a major gift campaign consultant. We're going to kick off the new month with the first show is going to be one on international giving on November 13th. That's going to be a very, very important show. We will not, however, have a show on November 6th, and the reason for that is that is Election Day. We want to make sure that everybody's out voting and helping the candidate of your choice. November 20th, Robert Penna is going to be here with the Outcomes Toolbox. We're going to then have the Green Show, which is a partnership with Green Nonprofits, on November 27th. Steve Hafner, who's always popular here, talking about matching gifts, will start us out in December, on December 4th. And don't miss our big holiday show. Each year, Kay Sprinkle Grace is here as our holiday show expert, and she's going to be talking about strategic holiday fundraising. So that's the upcoming shows here on the Nonprofit Coach. We're going to head right back over to our Page 2 expert, Linda Lysakowski.
Remember, our podcasts and archives are always available 24 hours a day at tedhart.com. Click on radio links. If you're listening live today, the phone lines are open. Call in and ask a question by dialing 347-324-3080. Now, back to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart.
We are back live here with Linda Lysakowski. Don't forget that you can call in today. You can also ask questions over in the chat room or email me at tedhart@tedhart.com. Now, Linda, what about this role of the CEO? You were mentioning before how you consider that vital to the fundraising success of an organization. However, oftentimes that's one of the jobs the CEO is trying to divest him or herself of. Can that happen and be successful?
Well, it might happen in some organizations. I know one organization, for example, where the chief development officer is really kind of the face of the organization, and I'm not sure if that executive director is grooming her to take over that role. But it's still the CEO of that organization. They're very successful in fundraising because the chief development officer has a lot of connections in the community, works those connections very well. But still the CEO is visible. When there's, for example, I worked with this organization on a capital campaign, and when they had a capital campaign meeting, it was the CEO who was there present, especially with volunteers. I think volunteers really need to see the presence of the CEO. And if the CEO just kind of washes their hands of fundraising, I've never seen an organization succeed with that mentality. Just as an example, I worked in a university at one point, and we had a very dynamic and charismatic president, and we had a very successful annual corporate appeal, and we had about 150 to 200 volunteers from the corporate world that came together, raised money for us. We raised about $500,000 a year in a fairly small community, just from mostly small to medium-sized businesses in our community. But one of the reasons that was so successful is the president of the university would meet with the chairperson and the vice chairperson of the corporate appeal. She would attend the kickoff meeting where all the volunteers were there and gave a really enthusiastic and powerful talk about the organization. And I've seen organizations that really brought themselves up from bootstraps because they have a dynamic CEO as a leader. I'm working with a medical clinic right now that provides free health care for people who are uninsured, and the founder of this is a doctor herself, and she is just so enthusiastic that when you hear her get up and speak, I think your first instinct is you want to open up your wallet and just throw money at her. She's so powerful. And, yes, they have a director of development who coordinates and organizes all this. And I think it's real critical that the development person and the CEO work very, very close together. In fact, one of the things that sometimes organizations fail at is they hire a director of development, but they put that person on a level of having them report to the head of marketing or the head of finance or something other than the CEO, and that never seems to succeed because the CEO and the development person really need to be a harmonious team. They need to work together. And if you have a CEO who's really, really busy and says, I don't have time for donor cultivation stuff, you have to work with them to make time, and you work with their administrative assistant and say, I need for the president to be here at this luncheon with this potential major donor, and it's really critical to the organization. And I think every CEO wants their organization to succeed. So if they understand the importance of their presence in those key major donor meetings, they will be there because they know how critical it is to the organization and to its programs. And so the organizations that are the most successful at this are ones where the development director or the vice president or the chief development officer, whatever you call that person, reports directly to the president or the CEO of the organization. Or
and that's a very important connection, isn't it? And you don't always necessarily see that being the case, but tell us why you advise that and the downfall to not doing it.
Well, I think the downfall to not doing it is the public image that you send out. I'm a real strong believer that an organization has to create a very strong philanthropic culture. And, for example, I've seen organizations where they have a vice president of administration and a vice president of finance and a vice president of program and maybe another vice president of another program. And then they hire a development person and they give them the title development coordinator or some really low-level indicating title. And when people see that on a business card, they don't have the person doesn't have the credibility that they would have if they had a title that was more indicative of what they really do. So if everybody in your organization at that administrative level is called a vice president, then your development person should be a vice president. If everyone's called a director, then your development person should be called a director. And it might sound like a really small thing, but it's very important because when that development person is out in the public and handing someone their card, and in fact I just met a group of people yesterday and got a card from somebody and it said development coordinator. So my immediate assumption is there's some type of a low-level person that maybe there's a higher person that's in charge of development, and this isn't really the decision maker in the department. So I think titles are important. We sometimes don't realize how important they are, but when you hand that business card out, it's got to look like you are a key part of the administration and that philanthropy is a high priority for that organization.
Now, isn't that what you're really saying, is that this is where philanthropy fits to us? So this isn't just you should give us money because we need money, but that we really value the relationships that are built through philanthropy.
Absolutely, and that's why, in my book, Fundraising for a Genius, I spent the first chapter talking about fundraising, philanthropy, and development. What's in a name, I think, is the title of that chapter, because it is important that we understand philanthropy and development. And I think a real simple definition is fundraising is really the activities that you do. It's the direct mail, it's the social media, it's all of those things. But development is about developing relationships with your donors. I think we all know the 3 key words in real estate: location, location, location. And fundraising has 3 key words too: relationships, relationships, relationships. And then philanthropy is, to me, the more global view of thinking that every one of our donors is a philanthropist, and that we really owe it to our organizations, to ourselves, and to our donors to value that philanthropy, whether it's a major gift, a moderate gift, or a gift of time from a volunteer. We really need that whole philanthropic community in order to survive and to be a better world.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that really is, I think, the essence of some of the problems that nonprofits feel that they have working in, fundraising to philanthropy to development. All these different words have so many different meanings. When you're working with a board of directors who all they really sort of know is that they want and need more money,
right.
Where do you go from there?
Well, I think the best thing to do is really get someone to come in and educate your board, because I have found as a staff person it's almost sometimes impossible to stand up and talk to your board about the importance of fundraising and development and what it's really all about. So a couple of choices you have is you could hire a consultant to do it, but if you don't have the funds to do that, I would suggest that you look at some other organization in your community that you know does have a real strong philanthropic culture, whose board is very engaged in the philanthropic process, and ask their chair of their board or maybe their CEO to come in and talk to your board and help them understand the difference between fundraising activities, because sometimes board members do just focus on dollars, and they think that fundraising is just about going out and asking for dollars. And really, I think anybody who's been in this field for any length of time knows that asking for dollars, especially with major gifts, is about 5% of your work, and 95% of your work is identifying those donors, cultivating those donors, building the relationship, stewarding those donors once they've made a gift. So the ask is really a small part of the fundraising role, and sometimes board members just don't get that, and sometimes CEOs don't get it either. So a lot of times there's just an educational process that needs to take place. I think a lot of times board members have this sort of tin cup mentality, and that maybe worked many, many years ago, or it might work with some emergency situations. But fundraising is not about just standing out there with your tin cup and asking for money. It's all about building the relationships with the donors.
Well, and that's true. Let me try this one on for size with you, because I had a CEO once said, "Oh yeah, I can do that fundraising thing. All you do is you take people to lunch."
Well, I think another common thing is, when we're hiring a fundraiser, we hire somebody with sales experience, because fundraising is really just like sales. And I do believe that salespeople have a lot of skills and talents that can be transferred into fundraising. But I came from a banking background. I spent 11 years in banking, and I was mostly in the marketing department. So I've had a lot of sales and marketing experience. But I realized the first day I walked into a nonprofit job that I really needed to learn a lot about development and philanthropy and fundraising, because my sales and my business skills were helpful to me, but I still needed to learn. And so I did exactly what I was talking about earlier. I went to every they didn't have webinars back in those days, but I went to every conference and every meeting and every workshop I could possibly find, and I read books. I read a lot of books about fundraising, and I joined AFP, and I went to the international conference and met thousands and thousands of fundraisers and networked with them. And that was really, to me, the key to being successful.
Yeah, and so back to the CEO for our listener today, whose CEO is basically has the attitude, well, that's your job, that's why I hired you. What do you say, and how do you make progress when you're in that kind of environment?
One of the things I think if you're in that environment that can be the most helpful, because, again, it's going to be very hard for you as a staff person to tell your CEO what their job is. That is probably signing yourself a death warrant. You're probably not going to be in your job very long if you do that. But if you have a board member or a development committee member that understands development and philanthropy and the whole important role of the CEO, I would ask that person to talk to your CEO and have that person really make it clear. The other thing that sometimes helps, and I get called in to do a lot of development audits, and hiring a consultant to come in and do a development audit, one of the things they're going to look at very strongly is what's the role of the development staff, what's the role of the CEO, what's the role of the board and volunteers in fundraising, and oftentimes an outside person can come in and convince your CEO that they really do have an important role in this. So I would either approach it through some of the volunteers that are involved or bring in someone from the outside, because you really can't often step up as as a level of employee below the CEO and tell the CEO what they have to do.
We have an email question from Alex in Seattle, and he's asking about tips on evaluating the success of a development program.
Oh, I'm glad you asked about that, because I think that's so critical. And, in fact, one of the books that I'm working on now that I'm really excited about, and it should be released probably the beginning of January, but it's called What's Wrong with Your Fundraising and How You Can Fix It. And it really focuses a lot on metrics, about measuring your performance. And we talk about leading indicators and trailing indicators. And I was glad to hear that you have Robert Penna on your book, because he does a lot of work with outcomes, mostly related to programs. I've read his book, and it's really a good one. But I think you can translate a lot of that into measuring the outcomes of your fundraising. And
he's going to be on the show November 20th, so that's a nice little plug for Robert Penna's show.
Yeah, he'll be great, I think, as a contributor, because I was really impressed with the work that he did on outcomes. But this is what you have to do with fundraising, too, measure everything. For example, I have two websites, and if they don't get to the one, they can email me, and I'll give them the other one is cvfundraising.com. That one has a lot of assessment tools on it, and one of those tools, for example, is a tool to measure your special events. And when you measure those, you not only look at how many dollars were brought in, how many dollars were spent, but you look at things like how much staff time was expended, how much volunteer time, and it really helps you evaluate your special event in a very objective way. I have a lot of other evaluation tools on there, and there's a link to a colleague of mine, Ellen Bristol, who I'm actually co-writing my book with. She has an online assessment that you can take free. It's called the Leaky Bucket Assessment, and it addresses 9 specific areas of fundraising. It doesn't, obviously cover every detail of fundraising, but it is a pretty comprehensive look at how you measure your fundraising, because what I find is most people don't measure it at all. They just kind of take what happens and say there's nothing we can do about it, but there is. You have to measure every piece of direct mail you send, every phone call you make, every visit you make, and there are a lot of tools to help you do that. And I would be happy to talk to you offline, Alex, too, because I don't know if we'll have time to get into every one of those tools in the next couple of minutes, but there are a lot of tools out there available on my website and other websites. I have some links to other websites, too, that you can go to assess your fundraising performance. And if you're not aware of it, AFP, along with a whole bunch of fundraising software vendors, including Blackbaud, who you mentioned earlier, have a fundraising effectiveness project that you might want to look into. It's free. Your software company will install some type of a little thing on your program, and it measures your donor retention rates, and I think those things are really important, because sometimes we measure how many new donors we get, but we forget about how many have we lost. So I would look into that fundraising effectiveness project and see if you can hook up through whatever software company you're using, because most of the major ones are taking part in it.
That's terrific advice. You mentioned that we don't have very much time left here on the show. As a matter of fact, we only have a few moments left. So what is the very best advice that Linda Lysakowski can leave my audience today?
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's so many things. I don't know where to start. But I would say, there's probably three or so key essentials. One is to have a plan, and that plan should include evaluation of whether or not you were successful with each of your fundraising. I think we really need to assess our fundraising and look at ways we can do it better. The second one is to maintain high ethical standards, because that's so critical, and that could be another whole show, but ethical standards are so critical today in fundraising. And then the third one is to just make sure that it is a team effort in your organization, that everybody's pulling together and working with the same objectives in mind.
Well, that's definitely one of the messages that I think we do take away from the show today, is that team approach, and that team isn't just the people that you hire, but it's the CEO and the board members. You also mentioned several times databases and information, and certainly in page one, I know you heard Pat Pasquale from the Foundation Center talking about big data. In just a couple of minutes, how do those sort of the team and data all come together to mean success?
Well, I think the data needs to be analyzed, and maybe, that might be the role of the development person that can really help make everybody else's job easier, because one of the reasons CEOs and board members and volunteers don't like doing fundraising is they often don't feel prepared. So using that data, if you can go to your CEO and say, I want you to have lunch with XYZ, potential donor, and here's what they've given us in the past, here's what they've given to other organizations in our community, here's some background information about that person and their family and their interests and their job and their career and their avocation, then a person feels more comfortable, because it's like talking to a friend. It's the difference between knocking on a cold door like a Fuller brush salesman and saying, hey, you don't want to buy any brushes, do you? Or really building a relationship. So that's where the data comes in, and that's where the role of the development officer can help make those other volunteers and your CEO feel more comfortable.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you there, and that's a great connection between the two. Linda, how can my listeners connect with you? We do have a link to your website over at tedhart.com. Click on radio links, but are there other ways you'd like people to be in touch with you?
Sure. I do have a Facebook account and a Twitter account, but probably the easiest thing is email me, linda@lindalysakowski.com, and if you have trouble spelling that, you can probably find that on Ted's link. But my other
right
website
there, so people won't have any
is
trouble with
fundraising.
that. We've only got 2 minutes left. I can't let you go without giving your own personal pitch for ACFRE.
Oh, well, I really encourage everyone who's a CFRE currently to think about the ACFRE process. It's a long, grueling process. It's not cheap. You have to invest a lot of time and some significant sums of money in it, but it really is, I think, a credential that anybody who's serious about this profession should think seriously about. And I'd be happy. I do a lot of mentoring. I'm mentoring one person right now. My last two mentees already have their ACFREs, but I'm mentoring someone right now through the process, and I'm always happy to talk to people who are interested in learning more about that.
Well, again, Linda Lysakowski, one of the icons of the nonprofit sector. Your new book is Fundraising for the Genius. Thank you for joining us here on the Nonprofit Coach Radio Show.
Thank you, Ted.
Bye now. We'll catch you next week.
You've been listening to the Nonprofit Coach Radio Show with Ted Hart. Tell all your friends to check out our production schedule and download our iPod and iPad-friendly podcast at tedhart.com. Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Coach.
When it comes to cleaning your house, who doesn't wish un galán with a trust fund swept in and passed the mop to your evil stepmom like in the telenovelas? Hola, it's Chiquis here, and although life isn't always like in the soap operas, Fabuloso does bring a clean that's always over the top. Get your home dramatically clean anytime you like, without any evil mama drama. Just long-lasting lavender freshness. That's Fabuloso, taking the drama out of any mess.
Fabuloso's 2 times concentrated formula provides 2 times more active ingredients versus non-concentrated Fabuloso Original. Use as directed.